Welcome back to the deep dive. For millennia, humanity has been wrestling with the same ultimate question. What is the divine? Today, we're embarking on a pretty deep philosophical and spiritual dive into how major world traditions define the very core of existence. Okay, let's unpack this. The source material we have lays out this breathtaking variety of answers. I mean, from complex polytheism all the way to strict non-theism. But the real goal here for this deep dive is to follow the source as it attempts something, well, something pretty radical, a philosophical unification. It proposes a definition of God rooted not just in ancient revelation, but in absolute, consistent, and observable rational order.
And the mission fundamentally is to tackle a massive challenge. How do you reconcile ancient spiritual truths with modern intellectual inquiry?
Right.
The source argues that this isn't just some academic exercise. If spiritual beliefs, if they fail to engage with reason, they risk becoming historical artifacts.
Instead of living truths.
Exactly. They stop being relevant. This pursuit is essential for maintaining integrity between our deepest feelings of faith and our strongest capacity for logic. And this search for coherence has, I think, tremendous relevance for you, the learner. By understanding the underlying rational principles that might unite these, seemingly disparate faiths, you gain a new lens. It allows you to move past the surface-level theological differences and recognize this shared, profound human aspiration to find meaning and order in the universe.
That makes a lot of sense. So we're not just talking about acceptance or simple belief. If the source is trying to define the divine as this rational principle, what's driving this search in the first place? Why do humans feel this need to constantly refine and re-examine this ultimate concept?
It's this inherent drive to align our inner spiritual inclination, that feeling of awe or wonder, with our intellectual advancements. If you're intellectually honest, you constantly seek coherence. The source insists that this dynamic engagement is the bridge between faith and reason.
So faith provides the conviction.
And reason provides the structure and the testing ground. When you refuse to apply reason, your spiritual life risks becoming rigid or just disconnected from the reality we all observe every day.
And when we talk about a refined understanding, that suggests there are practical benefits, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about the sheer volume of information we have today. You're constantly navigating potential conflicts between traditional views and new scientific or historical discoveries. A robust, reasoned understanding of the divine helps you integrate that knowledge without fracturing your worldview.
It creates personal clarity.
Powerful personal clarity. And it also promotes collective growth by encouraging sophisticated, respectful dialogue between people who hold very different beliefs.
Okay, so to really appreciate the unified framework we're going to explore, we first need to understand the vast theological landscape it's trying to integrate. And this is where it gets really interesting. Let's look at the specific, often contradictory ways major traditions conceptualize the divine.
Let's start with Judaism. Here, the concept is intensely focused on strict monotheism. God is singular, unique, and profoundly transcendent.
Transcendent meaning beyond the physical world.
Exactly. It means God is an incorporeal creator. He is spirit, without physical form, and ultimately beyond our full human comprehension. Philosophically, that distinction is crucial. It prevents any blurring of the lines between God and creation.
But what I find fascinating is that even with that profound distance, the Jewish concept of God is also intensely personal.
Exactly right. Despite being transcendent, this God is an intimately involved lawgiver who establishes a very specific reciprocal covenant with humanity.
A relationship.
A relationship. The entire narrative hinges on that relationship and mutual obligation. God provides the legal and ethical framework, the path, and humanity is responsible for walking it. That dynamic tension is absolutely central.
Okay, so then moving to Christianity, we get an entirely different conceptual structure, but it's built on that same monotheistic foundation. This is the idea of the triune nature. One God expressed in three persons: Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And this concept is maybe the most difficult to unpack rationally.
It is, but if we look at its function within the theology, it starts to make a kind of sense. The Father is typically understood as the transcendent creator.
Okay.
The Son, through the incarnation, is God made immanent present within creation to offer redemption. And the Holy Spirit is the active, sustaining presence that guides believers. This Trinity really emphasizes God's unconditional love, which is supremely demonstrated through the atonement. So this structure allows God to be both transcendent beyond creation and deeply immanent dwelling right here within it.
All right, shifting sharply eastward now, we arrive at Hinduism, and this is a massive philosophical departure. Its foundation is Brahman, which is the uh, ultimate, absolute, unchanging reality that undergirds all of existence. It's an incredibly rich, multifaceted view.
And we have to make a crucial distinction here that really informs the philosophy of unity later on. Brahman is typically viewed in two ways. First, you have Nirguna Brahman, the impersonal, attributeless absolute. It's unknowable by the rational mind.
Almost defined by what it's not.
Exactly, not this, not that. And then you have Saguna Brahman, the personal aspect, which is manifest through countless deities like Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. This structure allows for both the ultimate philosophical abstraction and, vibrant personal worship.
That dual nature, attributeless and personal, it seems designed to capture everything. And the goal is fundamentally different too, right?
Precisely. Hinduism is rooted in a cyclical view of time and reincarnation, the endless cycle of samsara. The ultimate goal is moksha liberation from that cycle of rebirth and suffering. This is achieved through diverse paths, whether devotional, philosophical, or action-oriented. The divine isn't just an external creator, it's the entire matrix of existence.
And finally, Buddhism. This gives us the starkest contrast of all. It is, generally speaking, non-theistic. The entire focus shifts away from defining a creator god. Instead, it's placed squarely on the individual path of self-cultivation.
That's the key distinction. The goal is enlightenment, nirvana, which is a state of profound peace, non-attachment, and freedom from suffering. And you achieve this by following the Dharma, the teachings, and the ethical path laid out by the Buddha. So while there might be divine beings in some Buddhist cosmologies, they aren't the central focus.
The focus is the process itself.
The process, discipline, and awareness, yes.
So when you look at those four alone, the covenanted lawgiver, the triune redeemer, the attributeless ultimate reality, and the non-theistic path to liberation, the diversity is overwhelming. Which brings us to the heart of the source material. How can any unified rational framework possibly encompass or even supersede such wildly different starting points?
And this is where the philosophical pivot in the source becomes so critical. It uses the foundation of strict monotheism, specifically Quranic teachings, but it processes that foundation through the lens of pure objective reason. The fundamental declaration is la ilaha illallah, or there is no God but God, which establishes absolute oneness.
So we're moving from theology more into metaphysics, defining God as a kind of philosophical necessity.
Exactly. The source encourages us to see God as the ultimate rational principle, the uncaused cause.
The first domino.
The uncaused cause that is necessary to start the chain of existence. And crucially, this cause establishes the immutable laws of causality, of ethics, and of natural order. This is the moment we stop viewing God only through mystical imagery and start viewing him through the lens of structured, consistent reality.
The text mentions God's attributes, mercy, wisdom, justice. But if we're defining God as this uncaused cause, how do those emotional-sounding attributes remain relevant? Are they just poetic language?
Not at all. In this rational framework, these attributes aren't anthropomorphic feelings. They're signifiers of the underlying rational order.
Okay, unpack that.
God's justice isn't some arbitrary punishment. It's the consistent, immutable law that dictates every cause has a precise and predictable effect. In physics and in morality, God's wisdom is the complexity and perfection of the structure of the universe itself. So these attributes are made manifest. They are observable in the consistency of creation.
That implication, that consistency itself, is the divine quality. That's a massive philosophical pivot point. But I have to ask, if the divine manifests only in the consistent interplay of cause and effect, doesn't that fundamentally eliminate the role of personal revelation, prayer, or mystical experience? The cornerstones of the faith we just discussed.
That is a critical question, and the source addresses it directly. It doesn't eliminate spiritual life, but it reframes it. In this worldview, the greatest miracle isn't the occasional disruption of order,
But the order itself.
but the absolute relentless coherence of that order. So when you pray, you're not asking for a contradiction. You are aligning your will with that ultimate rational order. You're seeking coherence. Consider this simple example, just to connect nature to morality, which is really the heart of the argument. If you drop a ball, gravity works. Consistently, you can predict the outcome every single time.
Right.
This rational principle suggests that if you act unjustly or with malice, the moral system of the universe, which is just as consistent as gravity, provides an equally predictable ethical consequence. The laws of nature and the laws of morality are two sides of the same rational coin.
So, scientific inquiry isn't separate from spiritual contemplation in this view. It actually becomes a form of worship,
Mm.
a way of observing the rational principle at work.
Precisely. By investigating the laws of physics, or psychology, or sociology, you are investigating the manifestations of the divine principle. It really challenges those traditional depictions that rely only on, supernatural intervention or unpredictable events, and instead grounds the divine in the verifiable reality we all experience.
So, what does this all mean? After traversing these vast theological landscapes, we have to arrive at the source's proposed integrated definition, the one that attempts to bridge all these concepts through reason. The definition, synthesized from the source material, states, God is the singular, eternal source and sustainer of all existence, a transcendent yet immanent rational principle whose attributes are manifest in the natural and moral order and the absolute coherence of the universe.
And when we analyze that definition, we see it deliberately redefines omnipotence. Omnipotence in this view is best displayed not in arbitrary, unpredictable power, but in the absolute consistent power that allows the observable laws of nature to exist and maintain themselves flawlessly over time.
So it moves the focus away from a distant supernatural ruler.
To the underlying cause that made a predictable reality possible in the first place. This worldview provides a tremendously robust foundation. For you, the learner, it challenges us to appreciate God as the living essence behind the universe's coherence. Why should you care? Because this is a foundation upon which moral responsibility and scientific inquiry can finally be built and reconciled. If the universe's operation is consistently just and rational, then your moral life must reflect that same consistency.
We began by exploring the profound diversity of how humanity conceptualizes existence, from the singular covenant of Judaism to the ultimate freedom of Buddhism and the impersonal absolute of Brahman. And we concluded by landing on a rational definition rooted in observable, consistent order, a framework that really seeks to unify faith and reason. The source speaks of a divine symphony played across the skies, where ethical chords and natural laws are arrayed. So if the entire universe operates under these consistent, just, and rational laws that provide balance and predictable outcomes, what does that imply about the accountability and predictability of your own moral actions? How does contemplating nature itself deepen your understanding of the ethical decisions you make every single day? That's the question we'll leave for you to explore.